Wait, next week?
Next week, yes. I was just saying that next week is our last official class for me for this class. It'll be next week on Tuesday. I think that's the 28th of May.
Hmm.
Your
I
last
thought this
day.
week was the last week.
No, we have one more class, but this is your last week of homework. Does that make sense? So when
Oh,
you turn
okay.
in your homework, you'll turn it in by Monday by 5 o'clock p.m. on Monday, and then Tuesday when we have class, it'll be more like just sharing your papers that you wrote, and then we'll play a little game, and it'll be really laid back, and that'll be it for my class. So no homework after that.
All right.
Yay! So you guys worked on 3 paragraphs this week about a place that you chose. And this was supposed to be a paper about a place that you know about. So something that you already have in your head that you have experience with and that you know a little bit about. And then you were supposed to come up with 3 different topics about that place. I know that Alex came up with the waterfalls, and I think, what was the second paragraph about that you wrote?
The rocks.
The rocks. And then there was the third topic was
Animals.
okay, good. So waterfalls, rocks, and animals, those were her 3 topics. Matt, I saw that you also wrote about Yosemite, and you had a couple of really good topics. There's one topic that I'm going to help you with, the last one, because it really didn't quite fit, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
All right.
Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about how to make an introduction paragraph and a conclusion paragraph. So before we get too deep into that, though, I want to show you an example. So go ahead and get out your binders. By the way, we don't have any grammar, so woohoo, we're done with grammar.
Is this going to be a shorter class then, or what?
Well, still going to be an hour class, but
All
at least
right.
we don't have grammar. We can focus on the writing part. So get out your binders, and then I want you to look at page. Let me pull this up really quick. Oops, that's not what I was supposed to share. Hold on a second. This one. Page 167. 167 is basically a paper, and it's written by Andrew Pudawa. You can see his name at the top here. That's the guy that actually created this whole binder and created this whole writing curriculum.
I can't find that page.
Okay, well, it should be in your front pocket. If it's not, look behind.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on.
Okay. I think we got it out last week. I'm pretty sure we did.
Oh, wait. I have it right here.
Oh, good. Okay, you're going to need all the papers that go with this. This is week 18. Do you have this too, Alex? Okay, I see your thumb. So basically, you're going to need all of week 18 because we're going to work through a lot of these pages here. I'll turn off this light so it doesn't, there we go, better. So you got it, Matt?
No, I still don't have it. I thought I had it, but I don't. I'll find it later, but I'll watch it. I'll look at it through the share the screen thing.
Do you have your binder though? Do you have that nearby?
I do. I have my binder, but it's not in there.
Okay, you must have not put it back when
it's misorganized or something. Something happened.
Okay. Well, you really need it. Can you look for it really quick again? Because you really need this. I'm going to have you guys mark on this. And so I want you to know what to look for. Yeah. Maybe your mom can help you. Okay. See if your mom can help you find it.
What is oh, I do have it. I'm sorry.
Page 167.
I looked right at it and I thought it was the wrong thing.
That's why I was like, I have a feeling it's right there. You just gotta. All right, so you have it. Okay, you're gonna need a pen or a pencil because what we're gonna do is mark some things in here. This is written, like I said, from Andrew Pudawa, so he's the teacher. So this is a really good example of how this type of a paper should be organized. The first paragraph is called the introduction paragraph. And by the way, we'll be talking about that more in detail after I finish reading this, because you're going to write your own introduction paragraph. But I'll just start at the top. It's called Blessed by Beauty. That's the title. And this is about a place that Andrew knows about. Softly rocking and swaying on our sailboat, I gazed into the crystal green depths. I was surrounded by water that beckoned to me, as did the bright white sand across the cove. Above the beach rose the brown and green dotted hills, while opposite the shore, in the far distance, the vague outline of a mainland was sometimes visible. My family, almost every weekend of every summer of my youth, anchored at Catalina Island, which lies approximately 20 miles off the coast of Los Angeles. It was a boy's paradise playground because I could build castles and forts endlessly on the sandy beach, climb huge rocks and up steep hills, as well as extensively explore the underwater world. Okay. Catalina Island, have you guys ever been there before?
No, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's in California. It's an island, but it's still part of California. So if you go to Los Angeles, like Long Beach, you can get on a ferry or a pretty large boat that'll take you across the ocean just partially to this little small island called Catalina. That's the place that he chose to write about. What I want you to do is put a box around this last sentence where it has build castles. I want you to put, with your pen or pencil, a box around build castles. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Put a box around the word climb and rocks. So actually, put a box around climb huge rocks. Let's make it like this. Climb huge rocks. And then underwater world. The reason why I'm having you guys put a box around these parts of that sentence is because those are the 3 topics that he's going to talk about in the next 3 paragraphs. So for your homework that was due today, you wrote about those 3 middle paragraphs. Those were the body paragraphs of your paper. So you had 3 different topics to write about, just like this. So you're going to notice the first thing he mentions in his introduction paragraph is building castles. So his next paragraph here should be about building castles. So when you see that, we're going to put a box around it so that we can see that it connects. Okay, so a long sandy beach provides all the raw material needed for endless building. So go ahead and put a box around that word building. And it's talking about the same thing as building castles. We're talking about building, and that's what he's going to explain here in this paragraph. A favorite of mine was engineering humongous forts, 8 or 10 feet across. Okay, so he mentions forts first. Oh, he did mention it here too, build castles and forts, actually. Okay, so initially my sister and I would dig a square or circular ditch with our shovels. Then we would start removing the dirt from the perimeter, placing it onto the edge to create walls around the increasingly large hole. With careful planning, an opening in the wall would allow us easier entrance, but a moat around the outer wall would protect us from imaginary enemies or predators. Obviously, a piece of wood for a drawbridge had to be found, and the deeper the moat, the more secure we felt. The walls could then be decorated with towers and turrets made from wet sand, molded by buckets of various size and shape. With a hole 4 feet deep and walls 2 feet high, ours was a fort to respect. But of course, because the waters of the tide would level our creation by the next morning, we would joyfully begin anew with our endless abundance of construction material. So go ahead and put a box around construction material here. So notice there's a pattern so far. So in the introduction, he's introducing these 3 things that he knows about Catalina Island. He remembers as a child building castles and forts. climbing huge rocks and the underwater world. This paragraph here is all about building this fort or castle. He kind of uses that word interchangeably there. So this paragraph goes with that first topic he listed here. The next paragraph begins here in the afternoons. And I'm going to guess that the next topic here that he's going to talk about is climbing the rocks. So let's find out. In the afternoons, the wind would usually pick up and the rocks or hills called us upward. So go ahead and put a box around rocks. And sure enough, he's talking about the rocks, just like he listed in the introduction. Because we would follow various goat paths tracing in the zigzags, we could ascend to the steep slopes more easily. From the top of the near hills, we would holler and wave at our parents who might or might not have heard us depending on the sound of the wind and waves. But if we continued to the top of the farther hills, the people on the beach became merely tiny specks. Certainly, the rigor of the climb was rewarded with the magnificent view of the broad white-capped ocean, and it was fun to see the boats, so tiny, bobbing in the bay. When we didn't feel like climbing the cactus and weed-covered hills, we would venture out along the shore, where the beach ended and large boulders formed. Let's see what it says on the back here. Barrier between the earth and the water. Often, especially if our parents couldn't see us, we would try daring jumps from one great rock to another or crawl in between them, looking at the small crabs and snails in the tide pools. Whether hiking up hills or exploring the rocky shore, it was always an adventurous afternoon. There I see the word rocky again, so I'm going to have you put a box around rocky here. That whole paragraph talks about the rocks and his experience with the rocks on Catalina Island. And remember, if I peek back on the front here, the last topic that he mentions in the introduction is, let me see, I messed up my little boxes here. Oh, here we go. Underwater world, right? So we put a box around underwater world, so I'm going to guess that the next paragraph is going to address that. Usually I went off by myself to explore the world underwater. Go ahead and put a box around world underwater, because there it is. We were right. Alone, because I loved the freedom and solitude. Sometimes I would concentrate on building my collection of sand dollars, diving down 5 or 10 or even 15 feet to the sandy bottom, scooping up white discs as large as a small pancake or smaller than a dime. I only kept the perfect ones, and my collection contained dozens of flawless sand dollars in every gradient of size. At other times, I would head out with my spear gun, searching for small, flat fish that had wandered into the shallows. Taking a large breath through my snorkel, I would dive down to where my spear would be in a foot or less from the head of the halibut, and aiming carefully, pierce his head, then hope it wouldn't wiggle off the spear before I reached the surface, gasping but victorious. Because of the blood oozing from the injured creature, I was always slightly nervous about sharks, but I never saw one larger than a couple feet in size. When not hunting, I would just roam the rocks, observing the golden, I'm not sure that word, Garibaldi perch, hovering between the strands of seaweed, or search for abalone clinging to the sides of rocks. Even getting a glimpse of a small lobster or moray eel peeking out of the crevice. It was easy to spend hour after hour exploring the ever-swaying, ever-fascinating realm beneath the waves. Go ahead and put a box around beneath the waves. So that paragraph was his experience under the water in Catalina Island. So far, the 3 main topics he talks about is building sandcastles or forts, climbing the rocks, and then now exploring under the water. So as I'm reading this now, you start thinking about your paper about Yosemite. Alex has waterfalls and rocks and then animals. So she's got her 3 topics there. This is what we're going to focus on in your introduction and your conclusion too. So let's read this last paragraph. This is the conclusion, and we're going to look for those 3 topics that we just read about in the conclusion. In many ways, my childhood was exceptional, even idyllic. Given the regular opportunity to have so much time outdoors, close to nature, with my family, and also alone. But for me, it was normal. My father loved the ocean. He loved to sail. He loved to get away from the busyness of the city. And he loved the peace he found at Catalina Island. Unwittingly, I was a beneficiary, for I truly believe that the climbing of the rocks and mountains, the many hours of imaginary building of forts and sandcastles, and especially the time exploring silent and colorful world below the surface helped make me a healthy and happy child. Okay, so we're going to put a box around climbing of rocks and building of forts and world below the surface. So we've got climbing of rocks, building of forts, world below the surface. There are the 3 topics that we just learned about in those paragraphs up above. Most significantly, however, I believe it was the time alone in nature that enriched my heart as I breathed in the various elements of natural creation, which then strengthened me for the challenges of adolescence and later life. I am still truly grateful for the beauty that nurtured my soul. Okay, well, he basically kind of really elaborated and made this very flowery writing, but it's good. I really like his words that he chose here to kind of give you an image of this place at Catalina Island and what it was like for him as a kid. So now that you see the pattern here, I like to relate it to like a sandwich, I guess, is the best way to relate it to as far as the structure. A sandwich has a piece of bread on top and a piece of bread on the bottom, but the bread is still there on the top and the bottom. And then in the middle, you've got all the different toppings, whatever you like in your sandwich, if it's ham and cheese and lettuce and whatever other parts you like to your sandwich. So think of this pattern here like that. The introduction and the conclusion are very similar, like the bread. So you're introducing this subject, the place. You guys are both writing about Yosemite, so you're introducing Yosemite, but you're also mentioning the topics about Yosemite, waterfalls, rock climbing or rocks, and animals, okay, that you find there in Yosemite. And then in the conclusion, you're going to mention those 3 again. So think of it that way as we start working on our introduction and conclusion. Do you guys have any questions about this story or what we're putting boxes around or any of that? Any questions so far? Okay,
Nope.
Good. Then let's look at page 169. It looks like this. So hopefully you have this one there, Matt.
Oh, hang on. I do have it.
169.
I got it.
Good. Okay. This is a little format here on how to build a conclusion. We're going to start with the conclusion. This is the last paragraph of our report. So at the top, let's just put next to that word conclusion, last paragraph, we'll just do a paragraph symbol like that. Just to remind you, oh yeah, okay, conclusion is at the end. You probably know that, but just in case. And notice down here where it says keyword outline for conclusion. Now this says keyword outline, but really it might help to just write complete sentences here to help you with your actual paragraph for later when you go to type it. So you're going to see here a V that stands for 5 in Roman numerals, right? That's a Roman numeral 5. So this is your 5th paragraph of your report. And then it says topic A, B, and C. Those are those 3 topics that you chose to write about Yosemite. And then you see most significant and why. So up here, it explains a little bit about what each one of those parts is about. So go back to the top here where it says restate the topics. Write a sentence or 2 about each topic. Try to convey the main idea of each body paragraph. Highlight or bold the topic keywords. Okay, so let's do that first, topic A, B, and C. And this is where, Matt, I'm going to have you start thinking about what you turned into me today. And Alex already knows her 3 topics, but for you, do you remember what the first paragraph you wrote for today was about? Was it about the waterfalls, Matt, or do you remember?
I'm sorry. I wrote it just about my trip there.
Your trip there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
have parts of like going up to like the rock formations and seeing animals and stuff,
okay.
if that counts.
Yeah, that counts, but you really need those as separate paragraphs. So you should have a paragraph that's all about like the rocks, and then a paragraph that's all about the something else like the waterfalls, and then a paragraph that's all about the animals, so that they're kind of separated out. The way you actually wrote it was more about a first, next, last type thing. Like on the first part of your trip, you did this, and the next part of your trip, you did this, and then the third part. So I want you to be thinking about actually things about Yosemite that you know about. I know you know about the waterfalls. You've mentioned that before. So that's something that we're going to have to look at a little bit later. So just listen to this part. I'm going to help Alex since she has her topics already figured out. And then we'll look at yours in a minute, okay, Matt? But watch what we do here. Okay. So topic A for you is about the waterfalls. So think of a sentence that would basically summarize what you know about the waterfalls. Like Yosemite has a variety of sizes of waterfalls, or one of the most famous things about Yosemite is their waterfalls, something like that. Do you have any ideas, Alex, of something you could say, kind of a overview of the waterfalls of Yosemite?
Well, they're all pretty big, and there's a lot of them there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of what makes it the most famous, though. Would you like? Yeah, it's a national park, right? Yosemite is. Yeah. So maybe you could say something about how it's famous for its waterfalls. Can you think of a sentence that includes that?
Not really.
Okay, let's think about that for a second. Maybe we could save that for here for most significant. Maybe we could say, like you were suggesting, Yosemite has many, instead of big waterfalls, what's another word we could use instead of big?
Giant.
Giant, okay. Let's put that. I'm going to help you write this one. Yosemite has many, and I'm writing the whole sentence, even though this says keyword outline. I like putting the whole sentence here because that helps me write it later. But if you want to just use keywords, you can. So Yosemite has many giant waterfalls. And then what I want you to do is put a box around the word waterfalls, because that is your first topic that you mentioned in the next paragraphs. Okay. See the pattern there. And by the way, Matt, you can follow this same pattern. This might help you with your other paragraphs too, if you want to write this down.
All right.
Yours. Topic B for you was the rocks. What is something you can say about the rocks in Yosemite that kind of tells about them?
They're very old.
Old, okay. What do you think, Alex?
Well, they're also big and there's a lot of them there. So,
Okay.
Many old rocks.
When I hear the word rocks, I tend to think of small ones that fit in your hand, but we're talking like really,
They're like granite faces, but they are, I guess,
yeah,
rocks.
made out of rock. Um,
Chunks? I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, keep
formations,
thinking. You're thinking, that's good.
rock formations.
Formations, yeah, rock formations. And they're not just big or large or huge or giant. How would you explain those formations? It's another
Well,
word.
you can climb them.
So maybe like gigantic, right? Because they're so big, it's not like you can just pick it up and put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
So we want the reader to go, whoa, you can, so they're gigantic, you can climb them. Like it takes probably all day to climb to the top of Half Moon.
I said in my paragraph that they were big. So
Yeah. So you probably later want to change that adjective to something more descriptive, like
all right.
gigantic or
Huge.
huge,
All right.
or humongous, or some type of a word like that that tells that it's super big enough to climb rock formations. So Alex, with that in mind, can you think of a sentence about that?
Um, hmm.
Start with there are.
There are many humongous rock formations in Yosemite. I don't know.
Yeah. I think rather than using many again, because we used many here, what's another way to say that? There are
A lot.
a lot. What's another way?
Uh,
How about the word numerous? Have you heard that word before? Numerous?
yeah.
Okay. Numerous. Um, gigantic. Was that the word you wanted to use?
Yeah.
Rock formations. I like how you said that earlier. Rock formations. There are numerous gigantic rock formations, and then put a box around rock formations. That is your second topic right there. And then your topic C was about the animals. So think of a way you could summarize the information about the animals in a sentence. Can you think of a way to do that, Alex?
Hmm. There's a lot of animals there.
A lot of
And
animals. Okay.
not like a lot, but there's quite a few. Um,
What kind of animals are they?
there's like deer,
Mhm.
bears, and foxes and stuff.
Would it be safe to say they're like forest animals?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because really Yosemite is also a forest. Um, so again, try to think of something more descriptive than a lot. We already used numerous and many. It's another way to say that instead of a lot. Could you say like several, maybe?
Probably.
Okay.
Um, there are several forest animals there.
Okay. Um, we already started with there are, so how else and we already started with Yosemite has, so try to think of a new way to start this sentence. Um, maybe start with several forest animals. How could you
Live
finish?
in
What did you say?
Several forest animals live in Yosemite.
Okay. I like it. Go ahead and put a box around the word animals. So we've got Yosemite has many giant waterfalls. There are numerous gigantic rock formations and several forest animals live in Yosemite. So you're addressing the 3 topics that you already wrote paragraphs about, and that's exactly how you do this. This is the conclusion. The most significant is next here on your outline. So looking up here at this paragraph called most significant and why says, what is the most important, most interesting, or most significant thing to remember about all that you wrote about or all that you wrote and why? You may choose one of your topics and tell why it is the most significant, or you may choose something that tells the importance of the entire subject. So earlier we were talking about how famous Yosemite is. Alex, what would you say, or Matt, either one, what do you think is the most famous part about Yosemite?
Probably the waterfalls and the rocks.
I think so too, because honestly, there are other waterfalls in California, but nothing like Yosemite for whatever reason, because of the way it's where it's located and how it's near these rivers and water sources. It just is a perfect spot for all of these waterfalls. So I really do agree with you that that is what makes it most significant. So to start this sentence, you would start by saying the most significant, and it's right there, thing about Yosemite is it's, what can we say here? Beautiful, magnificent, glorious.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. And you can pick any of those words to describe the waterfalls. That would be a good quality adjective to have here. So we'll put beautiful waterfalls because this is going to be a long sentence and we've got your because clause here. You might as well underline that and underline the word beautiful for your dress ups for that paragraph. The most significant thing about Yosemite is its beautiful waterfalls because why would that be the most significant thing about Yosemite?
They're big and you don't see them everywhere.
Yeah, I like that. You don't see them everywhere. So, it is the only place I know of in California that has so many waterfalls in one place, right?
Mm-hmm.
There might be other waterfalls in other states. I know that there's the Niagara waterfall. I forget what state it's in, but it's not in California. It's on the other side of the United
It's in
States.
New York, I believe.
Yeah, or New Jersey or something like that, somewhere around there. But I don't think anywhere else in the United States has this many waterfalls together in one place. So we could say something like, it is the only place that has
Waterfalls. A bunch of waterfalls close together.
yeah, okay. It is the only place that has a bunch of waterfalls all together. I like that. So go ahead and write that down. So I know we're squeezing all this on one page here, but that's okay. This is going to help you when you get to writing this. Yosemite has many giant waterfalls. There are also numerous gigantic rock formations. Several forest animals live in Yosemite. The most significant thing about Yosemite is its beautiful waterfalls because it is the only place that has a bunch of waterfalls all together. Okay. I want you to put a little note at the bottom here. And by the way, there is a note here for you also. It says, highlight or bold the topic keywords in your paragraph. Well, we actually put a box around them. So for your conclusion and your introduction, you do not need to do the topic clincher rule. Remember that rule where you repeat 2 or 3 keywords? You're not going to do that rule for your introduction and your conclusion, but you are going to highlight just the 3 topics that you're introducing. Or for this one, this is your conclusion. Okay. Underneath at this little space down below, I want you to put the words use transition words between topics. And then draw an arrow up here. So you can remember that you need to include these transition words. So what I mean is, I don't want you to just say Yosemite this, and then there's this, and Yosemite this. And by the way, this is the most significant thing. Because when you're just listing facts that are kind of random like that, it doesn't flow very well. So you need to use words like, in addition to the waterfalls, Yosemite also has numerous gigantic rocks. So you would bring those topics together by adding a few extra words in there. So when you go to type this paragraph, you need to think about how are you going to move from one topic to the next as you're recapping what you just wrote about. Okay, so transition words like in addition to, or another interesting fact is, or there is also, those types of words. Does that make sense to you, Alex and Matt? Okay. Okay, good. So that's just a little note to remind you. Use transition words when you're talking about these topics. All right, now I want you to turn this page over to the other side. And you will see we're going to talk about the introduction next. And it seems a little backwards, and it is on purpose, because they say that writing the conclusion is easier and the introduction is actually the trickiest part. So this is where you're going to introduce your topic, or not your topic, but your subject, right? Which is Yosemite. You're going to introduce what you're going to talk about. Remember that top bread of your sandwich. It's going to be similar to the conclusion, but not exact. Notice down here under the keyword outline, you have a Roman numeral 1. That's because this is your first paragraph. So right next to introduction, I want you to put first and then paragraph symbol. Conclusion's your last. This is the first. This is like the first thing that the reader sees when they read your report. And next to Roman numeral 1, you're going to see attention getter. So it's important to start your first paragraph with something that grabs the reader's attention and makes them want to read more. So let's look at what that means up here at the top. And this is all here for you to look back on when you get to that point of writing your paragraphs. Start your introduction with a sentence that encourages your reader to continue reading. Begin with a question, a fact or statistic, or a very short sentence. It could be something like, have you ever been to Yosemite? Or can you imagine what it feels like to stand near the bottom of a waterfall, or something like that? Or something to make the reader go, what? How would you get to the bottom of a waterfall? And then you can explain how Yosemite has waterfalls and how you can hike to those waterfalls, just like you did in your paragraphs. So that's an example of a question. Can you guys think of a good question, like a first question of your report on how to draw in the reader for reading about Yosemite?
I can't think of a question, but it's fun to see the waterfalls and
Say it one more
there's a
time.
lot to do there.
Fun to see the waterfalls. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and there's a lot to do
Okay.
there.
And there's a lot to do there. Okay. Matt, can you think of something? Like a question?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
hmm.
Those are good thoughts. I was trying to think of something that would grab a little bit more though, rather than just saying it's fun to go to Yosemite, because, you know, that doesn't tell us a whole lot. You could say something like, it is fun to explore, because really that's what you're doing when you go to Yosemite, right? You're going to different parts of Yosemite to see what it's like. You're exploring it, right? Maybe it's fun to explore, blah, blah, blah. Can you think of a way to say that, or some kind of a way to get somebody to want to read your paper? So have you been to the falls before? I think you have, right, Alex? You've been there?
Yeah.
What is it like when you get close to those waterfalls?
Well, they look really big and it takes a while to get to them.
Okay. They look really big. It takes a while to get to them.
Um,
When you get there and you get to the waterfall, what is the experience like? What do you, with your five senses, what are you feeling or hearing?
it's loud and it's relaxing and I already mentioned some of that stuff in my paragraph, so
Okay. So you don't want to repeat too much. That's a good point. You don't want to say the same things that you already said. So if you already used that, think of something different. So is it kind of like you're in, I've been to the one, I think it's called Vernal Falls. I've hiked to that one. And it's almost like you're standing in a shower. There's so much mist that comes off of it. Have you been to that one before? Where it's really wet? Okay.
yeah.
Did you mention that in your paper already?
No.
So maybe that would be kind of interesting. Like, if you ever want to cool off from the water, something about the water from the waterfall. I'm trying to figure out how to say it myself. But on a hot summer day, you could start with something like that. On a hot summer day, wouldn't it be nice to cool off next to a giant waterfall, or the mist from the giant waterfall? You see where I'm going with that? Try to think of a creative way to start off. Does that sound like a good idea to you, or do you have any other ideas?
I can't really think of something.
How about you, Matt? Can you think of something?
I am new. Okay. Well, it is like a shower because we've been there before.
Yeah.
So
I kind of
I don't
like
know.
on a hot summer day, try standing next to a waterfall.
Feels refreshing.
Yes. And you will feel refreshed or something like that. And you will get a shower. Will feel refreshed. I don't know. I'm just putting something down. You can copy this and you can change it later. If in the meantime you start thinking about this and you go, oh, I know what I could say, maybe you'll think of something better. You don't have to use this. Okay. I kind of like it because we're going into summer and somebody might want to read this and go, oh, yeah, it's hot. Maybe we should, Mom, can we go to Yosemite so I can see what it feels like next to a waterfall? You know, that's the whole point, is to getting them to want to go and to read about it. And you're not even really mentioning Yosemite in the first sentence.
On a hot summer day, it is refreshing to stand near a waterfall.
Yeah, that would work. Yep. Yep, that would work.
It would be refreshing.
Or try being refreshed by standing next to a waterfall or something like that. You can play with those words later, but at least get down the keywords that you want. Like, I know you like that word refresh and hot summer day. So you can write down a few of those words, and then maybe later when you have more time to think about it, you can come up with a good one. The next part here though is background. Background is up here. It's going to explain what you need here. Tell your reader what the subject of the composition is about by making a general statement about the subject. Now, remember, your subject is Yosemite. Then provide background information you think would be interesting or important. The background information should flow into the introduction of topics. So this is where you're going to introduce the word Yosemite. You're not saying it in the first sentence. You're just drawing them in the first sentence. And then you're going to say something about Yosemite, something different. Now, we've already made your conclusion. We've already said a couple things there. But background information.
It's fun.
It's fun. We decided it is.
Explore the stuff.
Yes, yes. It is a national forest. Have you mentioned that in your paragraphs yet? That it is a national forest or a national park?
I think
I have it as a
Maybe.
national park.
National park. Let me look this up really quick. Is it national? It is a national park. You're right. So after you said on a hot summer day, try standing next to a waterfall and you will feel refreshed, you could say something like, the best place in California to experience that is Yosemite National Park or something like that. Okay, or the most fun place to experience that, I'm going to say the best place to experience that, we just mentioned that, is Yosemite National Park. Now, like I said, later, if you come up with a better way to say that, you can change that. These are just for us to brainstorm with right now.
a fun place to experience that is in Yosemite.
You can say that. Yep, a fun place to experience that is Yosemite National Park. We need another sentence here that gives a little bit more background. And by background, that could be something like where it's located. You can say something about how it's in California. The whole thing is in California, right? It's not in Nevada.
Yeah,
Or is part of it in Nevada? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's only in California.
Only in California. Okay. So you can say something next like this park is located in the state of California, or this park is in the mountains of California, or something like that. So you're giving background information. You're kind of giving your reader, we're not talking about, Asia. We're not talking about Russia or Canada. We're talking about in the United States, in California. That's where this park is. So can you think of a sentence that kind of addresses that, Alex?
Like in California, You can see many waterfalls in Yosemite
Okay. Yes,
and
yes.
different things.
Yeah, I wouldn't mention waterfalls right here because you're going to mention it again down here for topic A. So I wouldn't say specifically waterfalls, but say something about where the park is located or how
Well, it's in the mountains.
in the mountains of California, not far from like Fresno, California, or you could name another city in California or Central California, somewhere around there is where it's at. So you said you can find, is that how you started it?
In California, you can find
In California.
the park is not far from Fresno.
Mm-hmm. You can add another sentence if you wanted to squeeze it in. Is not far from Fresno. Something like that. In California, you can find Yosemite. It is not far from Fresno.
I put in California, the park is not far from Fresno.
Okay, you might need the word located then, like this. Located in California, the park is not far from Fresno. So I would
Okay.
squeeze in that word located as your first word there. And Matt, are you writing these things down on your page too?
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is your finger is doing a lot near the camera and it looks like you're busy on your device. I just want to make sure that you're focusing on what I'm saying here, okay?
I'm writing it down.
Okay, so you don't need to mess with anything on your computer. Okay. Topic A, we're going back now to mentioning these topics. There's a paragraph up here to explain that under the word topics. It says, end your introduction by listing the topics you wrote about in your body paragraphs. Highlight or bold the topic keywords. Now, we did this back here for the conclusion. But here's the thing, you don't want to word it exactly like this because that's too repetitive. So you're going to use this information. So topic A was about waterfalls, but you're going to word it different than Yosemite has many giant waterfalls. Okay, so you're going to figure out how to word that. Something about waterfalls here for topic A, something they haven't really said yet about the waterfalls.
It is fun to explore and find different waterfalls that are the big ones.
Yes, it is fun to explore and find different waterfalls. I like that. And then go ahead and put a box around waterfalls. Now, just to keep this in mind, Alex and Matt, both of you, you just said it is not far from Fresno. So if that's what you put here, I would change this and try not to keep the same words in the same order, because then it sounds repetitive. So you can leave it for your notes here, but when you go to type it, come up with a different way to say that so that it's not the same. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I don't have it is on the first one.
Oh, up here. Okay, good. So yours is probably better than mine. So that's good. Topic B, we said back here, there are numerous gigantic rock formations. So in your introduction, something about the rocks. It's different than gigantic rock formations. What's another way you can introduce that topic?
I do not know.
Well, that's honest. That's okay. Let's brainstorm here for a second. Do you have any ideas, Matt, on talking about the rocks?
Sure.
Okay,
Wait.
let's hear
Wait,
it.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say, do I want to talk about the rocks?
Do you have any
Cut
ideas
out. So you
on
cut out.
how we
So
can introduce the rocks? Do you have any ideas?
okay, you cut out. So it sounded like you
Oh.
said you want to talk about the rocks.
I might have said it like that. I don't remember exactly how I said it.
No, you cut out on my end. So
Okay.
because it's laggy. But uh, well, I guess we can talk about their like height
I like
and
that idea.
because
Yeah.
they're like really tall. I looked up El Capitan. It was like 1,000 feet tall.
Okay, so if we could relate that to something else that we know is super huge like that, could it be like like a 15 or 20 story building, like a hotel or something?
Skyscraper.
A skyscraper. There you go. You could say the rocks are bigger
As tall as a skyscraper.
or bigger than a skyscraper. That would be kind of cool to mention it like that, comparing it to a city. You like that idea? Okay, so you could say something like,
Hmm.
some rocks, not all of them, but some rocks in Yosemite we could say the word, oh, I just thought of a word. This would be kind of cool. Outsize. A skyscraper. That's just my idea. You guys can change that if you want. Some rocks in Yosemite outsize a skyscraper. Put a box around rocks. Because that's your next the middle paragraph. Okay, now we're down to topic C. Whoa, I just looked at the time. Okay, so we're almost done here. Topic C is about the animals, right? And you already mentioned that they're forest animals. You already mentioned some details about them. So how could you reword that? Mentioning the animals.
Like um like what they eat maybe?
You don't
Or
want to go
how
into too many details because that's what you're going to write about in your paragraph. Like,
maybe how like they affect the ecosystem of Yosemite?
yeah. But do you address that later in your paragraph about the animals?
No.
Yeah, so you don't want to bring up something different. It's got to kind of fit with what you say
Like
about
it's
the animals.
cool to see them.
It's cool to see them. Oh, you could mention something about how they're wild animals. We already mentioned forest animals. You could call them wild animals. When would you see those animals? Like, obviously, if you're staying in a hotel and you're in the hotel room, you're not really going to see them, but where would you be?
When you're on like a hike.
Yes, I like that. Something
We
like,
saw Alex, remember we saw a bear
oh,
when we
wow.
were there. It was sitting in a tree, but then it ran away as soon as we only caught a glimpse of it.
While on a hike, it is common to, and we don't want to use the word see because that is a banned word. What word could we use instead of see?
It's common to notice them,
Notice or find, maybe?
to spot them.
To spot. You pick the word you like there, to find wild animals. And then put a box around the word animals. What is great about this is that you pretty much have your paragraphs already ready to go. You're just basically going to type it. You do need to make sure to include your dress ups. So I'm going to end this recording in a couple minutes here, but Matt, I wanted you to stay on if you can for a few minutes because I want to talk to you about your paper. But
Okay.
look at your checklist. This is what I keep reminding you on Google Classroom because this is how I grade your work, is this checklist. So I want you to notice a couple of things at the top under structure. That's been there. That's the same stuff. You will need to come up with a title for your paper now that you're going to completely finish it. You need to come up with a title that repeats 1 to 3 words from your final sentence. So you
Okay.
probably want to use the word Yosemite and then something about it. Like you can think of a creative title later. But notice under introduction here, this is different. Under introduction, it says introduction includes attention getter, background information, and states topics bold or highlighted. Now we just did that. This is your introduction here, that first paragraph. You just did that right here. And the words that I put a box around, you're going to bold or highlight. So you don't have to do topic clincher for your introduction. Okay, just
All right.
or highlight those keywords. And then the body here, it says topic clincher sentences. You guys, well, Alex has done that, and Matt, I think you did do some of that too. But make sure you do your topic clinchers for the body paragraphs that you did. And then here the conclusion says, restates topics, bold or highlight, and indicates most significant and why. And that's what we filled out first here. So this is ready to go for your conclusion.
Okay.
Then your dress ups are all here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 6 words to underline here. And then you have 2 different openers. You have a prepositional opener and an ly adverb opener. So you can use words like surprisingly, something, something, something about Yosemite, or unexpectedly, or some kind of ly word to start off a sentence. Okay, that kind of gives your paper more style when you do that. So 1 in each paragraph.
Okay.
And then watch out for those banned words. So your homework this week is to finish paragraph 1, which is your introduction, and paragraph 5, which is your conclusion. So you're going to put it all together in one big report. Okay, so do you guys have any questions about your homework?
Nope.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.